She had barely set foot in the parking lot when three uniformed officers closed in, hands near their weapons. "You don't belong here," one of them snapped. They shoved her credentials back at her, called them fake, and threatened to arrest her for impersonating a cop. None of them realized the woman they were harassing wasn't just an officer. She was about to be sworn in as their new chief. It was 6:45 a.m. when Angela Walker pulled her silver sedan into the Riverside Police Station lot. The sky was still heavy with the last shades of night, and the air carried that cool silence only early mornings could hold. Her black blazer and pressed trousers gave away nothing of the uniform waiting in her office upstairs. This was her first day as chief, but she wanted to walk through those doors as herself before she put on the stars. Angela had worked 20 years for this. Military police in the Army, detective work, leadership in 3 different departments, every promotion she'd earned twice over. But as she locked her car and started toward the staff entrance, a strange tension rippled across her skin. "Hey, stop right there!" The voice cracked like a whip. Angela turned slowly, heels clicking against the concrete. Officer Mark Reynolds was storming toward her, hand resting just a little too close to his gun. His square jaw tightened with suspicion. 2 more officers trailed him, Julia Barnes with a smirk already tugging her lips, and Tom Davis, who looked like he'd rather vanish than be here. "This is a restricted area," Reynolds barked, stopping a few feet away. "Move along." "I work here," Angela replied, voice calm. Reynolds scanned her, eyes lingering on her brown skin, her lack of uniform, her unbothered posture. His laugh was short and sharp. "Work? Lady, this is a police station, not your neighborhood." Gary Barnes crossed her arms and stepped closer. "Sweetheart, if you're here to file a complaint, use the front entrance. This door's for staff only." "I am staff," Angela said evenly. Both officers chuckled, dismissive. Reynolds leaned in, eyes narrowing. "Got ID to back that up?" Angela reached into her jacket, slow and deliberate. She handed him her badge. "Here." He barely glanced before tossing it back like trash. "Fake. Nice try." "It's real." "Hi, sure it is." Reynolds sneered, his voice climbing louder. "I've seen this stunt before. Fake badges, fake uniforms, trying to sneak inside. It's a crime." Barnes nodded. "A felony crime." Behind them, Davis shifted on his feet, his gaze flicked between Angela and his colleagues, lips parting as if to speak. Then Reynolds shot him a glare that welded his mouth shut. "You've got 10 seconds to walk away," Reynolds warned. "Or I'm placing you under arrest for trespassing and impersonating an officer." Angela's eyes moved across all 3. Reynolds with his hand itching near his weapon, Barnes soaking in the chance to humiliate someone, Davis shrinking under the weight of silence. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked quietly. "Lady, I don't know what game you're playing, but it ends now." Reynolds stepped closer. "You're done." Angela didn't raise her voice, didn't argue. She simply looked him in the eye and said, "I'm going inside now. You'll understand soon enough." And then she walked past them, heels steady, steps unbroken. "Don't you walk away from me," Reynolds roared. "That's obstruction. Grounds for arrest." Angela paused, just a tilt of her head back toward them. "Do you treat all women like this?" she asked softly. "Or just the black ones?" The words landed like a stone through glass. Barnes's smirk faltered. Reynolds's face flushed crimson. Across the lot, a man walking his dog had stopped. His phone lifted. Recording. The officers didn't notice. They were too focused on trying to box Angela into a corner. But Angela wasn't playing their game. Her silence cut deeper than any retort. Reynolds' frustration flared. He'd expected shouting, resistance, a reason to cuff her. Instead, he got nothing but poise. "Finally," he spat. "Fine. We'll let the sergeant sort this out inside. Hope for your sake you don't have more fake paperwork in that purse," Barnes chimed in. "Impersonating a cop's a felony. Just so you know, Angela memorized Reynolds' badge number with a glance, then pushed open the staff entrance and disappeared inside. The door closed with a soft click. For a moment, the parking lot was silent. Reynolds and Barnes exchanged satisfied looks. Davis kept staring at the door. Something about that didn't feel right, he muttered. What didn't feel right? Reynolds snapped. We just stopped someone sneaking in with fake creds. That's the job. Davis swallowed hard. But what if? What if nothing? Trust me, we'll never see her again. But Davis didn't look convinced. A gnawing weight sat in his gut, the kind that whispered a storm was coming. By 8 o'clock, every officer at Riverside had been called into the main briefing room. Normally, patrol met separately, but today detectives, desk staff, even the night shift stragglers filled the chairs. No one knew why. The chatter died when the door opened. Angela Walker stepped in. No blazer, no trousers, full uniform. Gold stars on her collar gleaming under fluorescent lights. The badge on her chest undeniable. Reynolds, sitting in the third row, went pale. Barnes's mouth dropped open. In the back, Davis closed his eyes and shook his head. Angela strode to the front. She didn't ask for attention. She already had it. Good morning, she said, voice steady as stone. I'm Chief Angela Walker. As of today, I'm in command of the station. The silence was deafening. You could hear chairs creak, breaths catch. Her eyes swept the room, then found Reynolds. He stared down at his boots, face burning with shame and anger tangled tight. I know some of you weren't expecting me, Angela continued. Some of you might even question why I'm standing here. Let me be clear. I didn't get this badge because of my gender. I didn't get it because of my race. I got it because I've earned it. 20 years of service, clean record, proven leadership. She let the words hang heavy. But I also know some of you will question me anyway. Not because of my work, but because of what I look like. Because I don't fit your idea of what a chief should be. Eyes shifted uneasily. Angela didn't flinch. That's a problem, not just for me, for this department, because if you can't respect your own chief, how can the community trust you to respect them? Reynolds' knuckles whitened around his notebook. Barnes squirmed. Davis kept his gaze fixed on Angela, something like relief flickering across his face. And so began her first day. The silence in the briefing room still lingered after Angela's words. But what none of the officers knew was that her calm tone was built on years of scars. Later that afternoon, as she sat in her office with the blinds half drawn, she opened the drawer and pulled out a photo frame. In it, a younger Angela stood shoulder to shoulder with her brother Michael Walker, both in crisp academy uniforms, smiles wide, eyes bright. That picture wasn't just a memory. It was the reason she was here. Angela's mind drifted back 15 years. She could almost smell the waxed floors of the academy gym, hear the echo of boots pounding in formation, feel the nervous pride of wearing a badge for the first time. Michael had been the golden one of the family, calm under pressure, sharp instincts, a natural leader. He was the kind of cop who made kids feel safe when they saw him on the street, the kind of partner you trusted to cover your back. For 8 years, he served with spotless dedication. No excessive force complaints, no disciplinary marks, nothing but commendations. But dedication had not been enough. Angela remembered the call one night. Michael's voice had been tight, controlled, but she knew the strain beneath it. I had to report one of my own today, he said. He told her about the suspect, handcuffed, already subdued, who had been struck again and again by an officer who seemed more interested in punishment than justice. Michael had stepped in, filed the report, stood by his statement, and from that day forward, everything had changed. His backup began to arrive late. Partners avoided being assigned with him. Small mistakes in his paperwork were treated like major crimes. Promotions that once seemed certain vanished into silence. The brother who had once carried such unshakable confidence began to second-guess every move. Angela could still see the quiet ache in his eyes, the weight of betrayal heavier than any bulletproof vest. Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore. Michael walked away, stripped not by law but by culture, by the unwritten rules that said loyalty to the badge meant silence about its sins. Angela had watched her brother pack up his locker, his hands trembling as he folded his uniform for the last time. He never put it on again. Now, years later, Angela sat in the very chair her brother should have occupied. His sacrifice burned in her chest, a compass pointing true north. That's why she hadn't flinched in the parking lot, why she hadn't shouted back, because she knew who she was, and she knew the system needed someone who wouldn't look away. A knock broke her thoughts. Officer Tom Davis hovered in the doorway, nervous again. "Chief, you got a minute?" Angela gestured him in. He sat stiffly, as if unsure if he belonged in the chair. His words tumbled out, low and ashamed. "This morning, I should have spoken up. Reynolds and Barnes were out of line. I knew it, but I said nothing." Angela studied him, her eyes steady. "Why didn't you?" Davis swallowed. "They've been here longer than me. They've got pull. I didn't want to make enemies on my third year. I thought, maybe if I kept my head down, things would be easier." Angela leaned forward. "And has it been easier?" He shook his head slowly. "No, ma'am. Feels worse. Every time I stay quiet, I hate myself a little more." That honesty struck something in her. Davis wasn't like Reynolds, burning with arrogance, or Barnes, who thrived on cruelty. Davis was a man at a fork in the road, still salvageable. "Why did you become a cop?" she asked. "To help people, to make a difference." Angela's voice softened. "Then do it. From now on, you have a choice every day. Protect your comfort or protect your integrity. One will make you small, the other will make you worthy of the badge." Davis's eyes lifted, steadier now. "I won't let you down, Chief." Angela didn't smile. She'd heard promises before. "Don't prove it to me. Prove it to yourself." That night, after the station quieted and the hum of vending machines was the loudest sound in the hallways, Angela sat at her desk replaying the security footage from the morning. Every angle of Reynolds' sneer, Barnes' mockery, Davis's silence, it was all captured. She saved the file on a secure drive, not out of revenge, but out of necessity. Evidence had a way of becoming leverage in a system that preferred stories buried. Her phone rang. The mayor. "Chief Walker, we've got a problem," Mayor Edward Hayes said without preamble. "There's a video going around social media. Someone filmed the parking lot incident. People are calling it racial profiling." Angela glanced at the screen still playing silently on her laptop. "I'm not surprised. I saw someone recording." "The council is worried," Hayes pressed. "They're talking lawsuits, protests. We can't afford that kind of heat. And what do you expect me to do? Keep quiet? Don't fan the flames. Let our PR team handle it." Angela felt her jaw tighten. "Keep quiet?" 3 officers tried to arrest their own chief because of the color of her skin. And your plan is silence? Think about your career, Angela, about stability, about what's best for the city. The threat was there, wrapped in politeness. Play along or lose everything. Angela hung up without promising a thing. The choice felt eerily familiar. Michael had once faced the same fork. He had spoken, and the system had chewed him up. Angela stared again at their academy photo, her hand brushing the frame. "Not this time," she whispered. The next morning, she made her decision. She picked up the phone and dialed a number the mayor had warned her against. "Channel 7 News? This is Chief Angela Walker. I'd like to schedule an interview." That afternoon, Angela sat under bright studio lights, dress uniform pressed, medals lined neat across her chest. The journalist leaned forward. "Chief Walker, can you tell us about the video that's been circulating?" Angela looked straight into the camera. 3 officers saw a black woman near a police station and assumed she didn't belong. They dismissed my badge as fake, threatened to arrest me, and treated me as a suspect instead of a colleague. That woman was me, and this isn't just about me. It's about how bias, conscious or not, shapes the way officers treat citizens every single day. The clip hit the airwaves within hours. By evening, it had been shared thousands of times. Some praised her courage. Others accused her of playing the race card. The police union defended Reynolds and Barnes. Community activists called for their suspension. Angela ignored the noise. She had said what needed to be said. Now came the harder part. Proving change wasn't just a press line. Inside the station, lines began to form. Reynolds sneered louder, telling anyone who'd listen that the chief was out to destroy them. Barnes backed him, whispering poison in break rooms. But Davis started pulling other younger officers aside, reminding them of why they joined, pointing out that trust from the community wasn't a luxury, it was survival. Quietly, a third of the department began leaning toward Angela's vision, but resistance was heavy. Reports of past misconduct landed on Angela's desk, a thick folder that Davis slid across sheepishly. Each page was a story of a citizen wronged, a complaint ignored, a pattern of abuse swept under rugs. Reading through them felt like walking through a graveyard of trust. Angela knew if she followed protocol, the mayor would bury it all again. So she made another call, this time to the state attorney general's office. "This is Chief Walker of Riverside," she said firmly. "I need to speak about possible civil rights violations within my department." It was a line that once cost Michael his career. But Angela wasn't Michael. She had power he never did, and she intended to use it. As she hung up, the weight of her brother's memory pressed heavier than ever. She touched the photo again, whispering into the quiet, "I'm finishing what you started." And outside, the storm she'd unleashed was only beginning to gather. The investigation began quietly, with state auditors slipping through hallways in plain suits, carrying clipboards instead of guns. But in a station built on whispered loyalties and old grudges, nothing stayed quiet for long. Within days, the rumors spread. Subpoenas were being drafted. Officers were being called into interviews. Files that had been locked away for years were now under new scrutiny. Angela Walker knew the pressure would mount, but she hadn't expected the sheer hostility that arrived almost overnight. Conversations hushed when she entered a room. Coffee cups were left on her desk with mocking notes scrawled in thick marker, "Chief of Chaos." Locker doors slammed harder when she walked by. For some, she was the enemy within, daring to shine light where shadows had always ruled. Reynolds and Barnes, suspended but not yet fired, became the rallying cry for dissenters. From their home, they called colleagues, painting themselves as martyrs. "She's using us to climb the political ladder." Reynolds spat into a phone one night. "Today it's us. Tomorrow it's you." Barnes, more cunning, whispered about lawsuits, pensions, and the promise that if they stuck together, the chief couldn't touch them all. But while resistance brewed, so too did something Angela hadn't dared to hope for. Loyalty. Officer Davis had found his voice. In the locker room, he spoke to younger officers, reminding them that a badge meant service, not power. At patrol briefings, he volunteered for the hardest assignments, showing that integrity could still walk a beat. He wasn't loud, but his quiet conviction began to gather followers. For the first time, Angela saw a split forming, not just between her and the department, but within the department itself. Late one evening, Angela sat at her desk, surrounded by stacks of old reports Davis had given her. Each file was a scar. One detailed a young Latino man pulled over 6 times in 3 months by the same 2 officers. Each stop ending without a citation, just humiliation. Another outlined a complaint from a single mother who had called for help during a domestic dispute, but ended up being arrested herself when she shouted too loudly. Her words echoed in Angela's head. "They never saw me as someone worth protecting, just someone worth controlling." Angela knew these weren't isolated failures. They were patterns, patterns that destroyed trust in the community and poisoned the badge itself. The phone on her desk buzzed. It was Mayor Hayes. "Chief Walker, what the hell are you doing?" His voice was sharp, panicked. "You called in the state? Now the feds are sniffing around. Do you realize the damage you're causing this city?" Angela didn't raise her tone. "The damage was already done. I'm just refusing to cover it up. This department's reputation is in free fall." Hayes shot back. "Businesses are nervous. Donors are angry. The union is threatening a strike." "Then maybe," Angela said, her voice firm as iron, "they should think about why citizens don't trust them anymore." There was silence, heavy and dangerous. "Finally," Hayes said, "you're making enemies you can't afford. Chief, watch yourself." The line went dead. Angela leaned back in her chair, the threat lingering in the silence. She thought of Michael, how his honesty had been his undoing, and for a flicker of a second, she wondered if history was repeating itself. The next morning, the FBI arrived. Plain black SUVs rolled into the parking lot, and agents in dark suits strode through the front doors with warrants in hand. The station buzzed with nervous energy, officers whispering in corners, wondering who would be called next. For some, fear meant silence. For others, it meant retaliation. Angela felt the tension boil over in the afternoon briefing. An older sergeant, his voice rough from years of shouting commands, stood up and jabbed a finger at her. "You've brought outsiders into our house. You've betrayed your own. Do you even realize what you've done to morale?" Angela met his eyes, unblinking. "I realize morale built on silence and misconduct isn't worth saving." The room erupted, some nodding, some cursing under their breath, a few walking out in protest. But in the back, Davis stood tall. "The chief's right," he said, his voice trembling but clear. "We all swore an oath, not to Reynolds, not to the mayor, not to tradition, to the law, to the people. If we can't handle accountability, then maybe we shouldn't wear the badge." The words hung heavy. A few younger officers shifted uncomfortably, but they didn't walk out. A line had been drawn, and for the first time, Angela wasn't the only one standing on her side of it. That night, Angela drove home under the weight of it all. Her apartment was quiet, the city lights flickering through the blinds. She sat at her kitchen table with a cup of untouched tea, staring at the photo of her and Michael again. For the first time in weeks, she let herself whisper the truth out loud. "I'm scared. Mike," her voice cracked. She pressed the frame to her chest, closing her eyes. "But I won't run. Not like they made you run. I'll fight until this place changes, even if it breaks me." Outside, sirens wailed faintly in the distance, a reminder of the job, of the lives still depending on the badge. Angela knew tomorrow would bring more resistance, more headlines, more battles in rooms where she was outnumbered. But she also knew the tide was shifting, slowly, painfully, but shifting, and as long as she carried Michael's memory with her, she would not back down. The morning air outside Riverside Police Station carried a strange electricity, the kind that made shoulders tighten and voices drop. Black SUVs were still parked out front, FBI agents moving in and out like surgeons peeling away layers of rot. Inside, the hallways echoed with clipped footsteps and hushed curses. Every officer knew the reckoning had begun. Angela Walker had spent the past 3 nights running on fumes, her apartment turning into a makeshift war room, folders stacked high, her laptop buzzing with reports. The investigation was no longer a whisper. It was a storm tearing through the department. By now, 3 officers had been quietly arrested. Others had resigned under the pressure, leaving their lockers empty, nameplates stripped bare. But the resistance was far from gone. Officer Mark Reynolds and Julia Barnes, though suspended, had weaponized their free time. They appeared on local radio shows, claiming they were victims of a witch hunt. They sat for interviews with sympathetic journalists, painting Angela as a radical intent on dismantling the force. Supporters online amplified their message. Good cops punished for doing their jobs. Inside the department, Angela could feel the poison spreading. A group of veteran officers dragged their feet on assignments. Losing paperwork, missing deadlines, subtle sabotage designed to show the chief couldn't control her own house. Even in the cafeteria, she could sense the division. Tables split between those who avoided her gaze and those who quietly nodded in solidarity. It all came to a head during a tense city council meeting. The chamber overflowed with residents, activists holding signs that read "Justice Now," union supporters waving back the blue banners. Angela sat at the front table, her uniform immaculate, her eyes steady. Across from her, Mayor Edward Hayes leaned forward, his jaw tight. "Chief Walker," Hayes said, his voice carrying through microphones and cameras. "This department is unraveling under your leadership. Complaints from the union are piling up. Morale is collapsing. You've allowed state and federal agents to humiliate our city." Angela folded her hands. "What's unraveling isn't because of me. It's because misconduct that was hidden is finally in the light. That's not humiliation. It's accountability." A union representative stood, his voice booming. "Chief, you've thrown good men and women under the bus. Officers Reynolds and Barnes followed procedure, and now they're suspended because of political pressure." The crowd split in half, cheers from one side, angry shouts from the other. Angela leaned into her microphone, her tone even but unyielding. "If procedure means harassing citizens, or in this case, their own chief, then procedure is broken. And if anyone believes wearing a badge means being above the law, then they don't deserve to wear it." The room erupted, council members pounding gavels to restore order. Angela stayed still, her calm presence more powerful than the chaos around her. That night, she drove home exhausted, her phone buzzing nonstop with messages, threats, support, warnings. She ignored most of them until one caught her eye. A grainy photo of her apartment door with a note taped to it. "Stop, or we'll stop you." For a moment, fear coiled in her stomach, but she tore the photo up, tossed it in the trash, and locked her door. She had grown up in a military family. Intimidation wasn't new. What rattled her wasn't the threat. It was knowing some of her own officers might be behind it. The following morning, she gathered the department in the briefing room again. The atmosphere was heavier than before, some officers glaring openly, others shifting uneasily. Davis stood near the back, shoulders squared. "Ready?" Angela stepped to the front. "I know some of you think I'm the enemy, that I'm here to destroy this department. You're wrong. I'm here to save it from itself." She clicked the projector. Photos of citizen complaints filled the screen. Victims' faces, bruised and tired, their statements laid bare. This is what the community sees when they look at us. This is why trust is broken. Reynolds, sitting smug with folded arms, interrupted. "Trust goes both ways, Chief. Maybe if the community respected us, we wouldn't have problems." Angela turned, locking eyes with him. "Respect isn't given by fear. It's earned by integrity. You've mistaken obedience for respect, and the community knows the difference." A murmur rippled through the room. Reynolds' jaw clenched, but for the first time, he said nothing. Angela clicked to the next slide. Statistics since the reforms had begun. Complaints down. Cooperation up. The numbers weren't perfect, but they told a story the resistance didn't want to face. "Some of you will keep fighting me," Angela said, her voice sharp now. "And that's your choice. But understand this. Misconduct will not be tolerated. Bias will not be excused. Abuse of power will not be ignored. If you can't handle that, hand in your badge now." The silence that followed was thick. A chair scraped as one older officer stood, tossed his badge on the table, and walked out. A few others followed, but most stayed, shifting uneasily, some even nodding. After the meeting, Davis approached her. his face lit with a quiet fire. "Chief, you've got more people with you than you think. Some are just scared. But after today, they know you're serious." Angela gave him a rare smile. "Good, because scared can turn into courage, given time." That evening, she returned to her office and found a letter waiting on her desk. No name, just a folded sheet of paper. Inside were only 6 words. "Thank you for fighting for us." She didn't know who had written it. An officer, a civilian, maybe even a victim of the past. But as she sat there holding the letter, the exhaustion of the week seemed to lift, replaced by something steadier. Hope. The department was still fractured, the mayor still circling like a hawk, and enemies still waiting in the shadows. But Angela knew the tide had turned. The storm wasn't over, but for the first time, she wasn't standing in it alone. And as she turned off the office light that night, she whispered again to the photo of her brother in the drawer. "They tried to silence you, Mike, but they won't silence me. Not now. Not ever." By the time spring came to Riverside, the department looked nothing like the one Angela Walker had inherited on the tense morning. Empty desks lined one corner of the squad room, reminders of officers who had resigned rather than adapt. In their place, new recruits fresh from the academy filed in, faces unweathered, eyes still bright, trained under the new culture Angela had fought to create. The investigation had cut deep. The FBI released its findings: years of civil rights violations, a pattern of racial profiling, misconduct swept under the rug. The report named names. Some officers faced criminal charges, others lost pensions, reputations, and the only career they'd ever known. It was brutal, but it was honest. Angela didn't celebrate. She sat in her office, stacks of paperwork surrounding her, the phone ringing nonstop. Community leaders wanted meetings, journalists wanted quotes, politicians wanted spin. She wanted none of it. What she wanted was quieter, harder to measure, trust, and trust wasn't restored by headlines. It was built in silence, on sidewalks, in living rooms, in the small spaces where uniforms met citizens' eyes. Officer Davis, now Sergeant Davis, knocked on her door one afternoon, holding a stack of fresh reports. His uniform looked sharper these days, not because it was new, but because he carried himself differently. "Chief, thought you'd want to see this," he said, placing the folder on her desk. Angela flipped it open. Use of force incidents had dropped 30% in the last quarter. Citizen complaints were down nearly 40%, and cooperation with investigations, witnesses showing up, tips being called in, was up 25%. The numbers weren't perfect, but they were undeniable. For the first time in months, Angela allowed herself a small smile. "Good work, Sergeant." Davis hesitated, then added, "It's not just the numbers. Chief, the guys, some of the same ones who were against you, are starting to come around. They've seen the difference. They're proud again. It feels like we're actually serving people, not just policing them." Angela closed the folder. "That's the point. It was never about bigger arrests or flashier stats. It's about dignity. For them. For us." That evening, Angela found herself on stage again, this time not in front of her officers, but at a national leadership conference. Chiefs, commissioners, sheriffs from across the country filled the hall. Some watched with skepticism, others with curiosity. Angela stood at the podium in her dress uniform, the weight of her badge glinting under the lights. "Change is never easy," she began. "In law enforcement, it can feel impossible. We inherit traditions, hierarchies, ways of doing things that feel carved in stone. But tradition doesn't excuse injustice. Hierarchy doesn't excuse silence, and comfort doesn't excuse corruption." She clicked to a slide showing Riverside's numbers. Complaints down, cooperation up. The audience shifted, murmuring. Then she clicked again. A photo appeared, her and her brother Michael in their academy uniforms, smiling, proud. This is my brother, as she said, her voice tightening. He was a good cop, the kind every community deserves. But he reported misconduct, and for that, he was forced out. He chose integrity over conformity, and he paid the price. The room stilled. Angela let the silence breathe before she continued. I became a chief to make sure no other good officer has to make that choice. To build departments where doing the right thing isn't punished, but rewarded. Where citizens can trust that the people sworn to protect them will do so with fairness, with respect, with humanity. She looked across the sea of uniforms. We all have a choice. Keep doing things the way we always have, and keep getting the same results or change. Build something better, not for politics, not for headlines, for the communities who look to us in their most vulnerable moments, for the officers who deserve to serve with pride, for the oath we all swore. Thunderous applause broke out, rolling through the hall. Angela stepped back from the podium, her chest tight not with fear, but with something lighter. Relief, vindication, hope. That night, in her hotel room, she sat by the window with the city lights sprawling below. Her phone buzzed, a video call. Michael's face appeared on the screen, older, lines of wear around his eyes, but his smile was the same. I saw your speech, he said. You did it. Angie, you're doing what I couldn't. Angela swallowed, her throat tight. I'm doing it because of you. You showed me what it costs to stay silent. I couldn't let your sacrifice mean nothing. Michael nodded slowly. It didn't. Not anymore. When the call ended, Angela sat back, the photo of them both still tucked in her travel bag. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the weight of it pressing her down. She felt it lifting her up. Back in Riverside, change was still fragile. The mayor still grumbled. The union still resisted. And not every officer was convinced, but seeds had been planted. And every day, with every patrol, every conversation, every citizen treated with dignity, those seeds grew. Angela Walker knew the work wasn't over. Maybe it never would be. But as she turned off the hotel lamp and lay down to rest, one thought echoed steady in her mind. This is what hope feels like. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave your thoughts below. Have you ever seen power abused or courage stand against it? And if you want more stories of justice, resilience, and change, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Your support helps keep these voices alive.